Well, good morning, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be talking to Jill Speering about her new book. Let's have a share screen and take a look at that. Rubies and Rubble, an educator's transformation from pain to providence, from abuse to absolution. Jill Speering. And it's really an amazing book. There'll be a link to it in the blog. Uh, let's see what some folks have had to say about it. And they've had to say some nice things. Once I started this book, I couldn't put it down. It was so compelling, so personal, yet the trials and triumphs of the author's life spoke to me. The insights Jill gained from her exploration remind us that we are all more than the sum of our experiences. So I have to say the same thing. When I started the book, I couldn't put it down. There are so many highlights of the book. That I would love to talk to everyone about. I've got several questions I'm going to be asking Jill, and I'll put those up on the, put those here. And the first one, of course, is tell us a little bit about yourself. So Dr. Sam, be quiet and let Jill do some talking. Here we go.
Good morning, Dr. Sam. It is delightful to be with you this morning. Thank you for this time.
Well, thank you. I mean, whoa.
I am an elementary teacher of 35 years. Most of my experience has been teaching children to read through writing. And the last 15 years of my educational career was in reading recovery. I trained in Ohio with Mary Freed and to become a teacher leader. And I had then taught reading recovery teachers for another 15 years before I retired. And then I ran for the school board in order to continue my activism for at-risk children, and was elected to 2 terms on the Metro Nashville School Board. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
wow. Let's get into things then. And I'm going to do the share screen real quickly. That gives me a, okay. Why did you write this book?
That is a great question. And when I got off the board, really even before I got off the board, I started thinking, I started having this yearning to tell the story from my childhood about what encouraged me to become a teacher, and then what encouraged me to become the teacher that worked primarily with children who needed an advocate. And what I realized is that my life had come full circle, because I was the reading recovery kid, although there wasn't reading recovery when I was young, but I was the kid who needed reading recovery. I was the kid who didn't like school and yearned for a teacher who would be kind to me. And so I wrote the book in order to not only help teachers realize that we all, all of us have some type of trauma in our life or in our past life, but in our classrooms, our children also have traumatic experiences that they come, that maybe they don't present, but they have in their repertoire. And so to be able to recognize that all children can learn if we give them the, if we create the environment for them to blossom.
Wow. Well said. And I, follow the child and the program, fit the program to the child. These are mantras of mine.
Yes.
So what you're saying is music to my ears.
Yes.
You know that I love writing workshop, and I heard you talking about wanting to teach children a little bit about reading through writing. So talk to us now about, as an author of this book, and you mentioned in your biography that you've had some training in how to write. Talk to us a bit as an author. and how your training in writing helped you write this book, and any insights you might give us, because there are some of us that might want to write a book someday.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as a student, I had no opportunities to write stories that I recall. What I recall about my elementary years were write-offs, and which actually go, they're counterproductive. They encourage poor penmanship, and they encourage children to hate writing. But as I went through my educational career and I started learning more about writing, and when I became a teacher and began to get into master's degree classes where they were talking about teaching children how to write, I thought, I have no idea how to do that. So I went to New Hampshire and did a 3-week seminar with Jane Hanson, Donald Graves, and Nancy Atwell.
Holy cow! Wow.
Oh, it was wonderful to spend 3 weeks with those professionals, and part of the day, the biggest part of the day, was spent in writing. And we wrote and we shared our writings and we got feedback from our peers, and then we published a piece each week that we were there. We were there for 3 weeks, and that was very different than what I had ever experienced in the past. Part of the day also was spent in writing at our grade level. So I was teaching first grade at the time, and a lot of questions were answered for me. But the biggest thing was when you incorporate a classroom with writer's workshop, you are a writer, you know how to handle the problems that come up because you are a writer. And really being able to step into that and claim that was really wonderful. And my children, they ached for their writing. They loved their books that they had published. And once we wrote to Eric Carle, and Eric Carle answered us. And as a matter of fact, this is the way he answered us.
My.
He invented spellings. And he said, "Dear Miss Waddell, dear friends," that was my name at the time, "thank you for your letters and pictures of pupil materials. I like your approach to teaching. I wish I had a teacher like you. My teacher didn't let me make mistakes, but now I have a wonderful editor. She corrects all my mistakes. I am lucky. Keep up the good work. With admiration, Eric Carle." So that is just.
Oh, that is a treasure.
That is really a treasure. So, having that opportunity to, to be with my children and write, and I was, of course, writing with them each day. We had 5 minutes of uninterrupted writing, and during that time, nobody spoke. Everybody, nobody spoke to me because they knew I was writing. And so when I began to write the book, and there would be times that I think when we write, we want to sit down and write a finished product. And it just doesn't happen that way. We write and we get our thoughts on paper, and then we decide which ones we need to discard and which ones we want to go in and research and make better, and edit and revise. And it's a process. And I, had to give myself permission to go through that, if you will, tedious process in writing a book. I'd written manuscripts before, but and articles, but never a book. So this was quite an experience for me.
Well, yeah, I'll add that it was quite a successful experience, right? It's an amazing piece. Okay, so is this book more a memoir or a biography?
It's really more of a biography. Yeah, I think it is. It's more because it starts with my childhood and goes through my life presently.
Okay, now this is the key set of, I'm just going to give you the two questions at once, and this is the meat of everything.
Yes.
First of all, what are the most important takeaways for readers? And takeaways, readers of life, and takeaway for your teacher readers, and just as a life lessons kind of thing. And then I think, in a few weeks, I'll be presenting at LitCon talking about recovery as a viable approach. And I'm just very happy to be talking to a strong advocate of that. My friend Paul Thomas has taken the position that children deserve access to reading recovery. So as you talk about all this, your thoughts about that, and do you agree with Paul and I that there's a need to have access to reading recovery? So it's almost like a two-level question there, from the perspective of life lessons and from the perspective of as a reading recovery teacher. And I know there are some things, you did some fierce battles during your time with the board defending recovery. So tell us all about that, and that's my last pair of questions.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think one of the major takeaways is is the trauma piece that we, I certainly suffered trauma as a young child, thinking that my father was in World War II, and he came back from the war very angry, and led me to believe that I was stupid. And yeah, he would often, use those words with me, and it became my mantra. What's wrong with me? Am I stupid? And then I had teachers that early on that even reinforced that. And then at one point was in I couldn't say my R's. I said wabbit instead of rabbit. And luckily for me, I was put into a speech class, 101, with a teacher who was wonderful. I loved going to her. She made me feel smart. She made me feel important. And when I learned how to say rabbit, I kept it a secret, because I had a sense that once I was able to say that word, my time with her would be gone. But she was she was astute, and she figured it out before I could, despite my intention to keep it a secret. And before I knew it, my time with her was up, and I really missed having that one-on-one time. And then I had a classroom experience where, in my 5th grade, where I was so traumatized from being embarrassed in front of with my teacher. She would correct me in such a way that just made me sick. And before I would go to school in the morning, I would lose my breakfast. And despite losing my breakfast, I still, I could throw up right there, but I still had to go in and spend another day with a teacher who thought as highly of me as my own father. So my life was really just in turmoil, and I was so unhappy, and I failed the 5th grade, and I was so embarrassed about it. And my father sent me to a parochial school where I worked in a 3-classroom school. And 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade was in one class. 4th and 5th was in another class, and 5th, 6th, and 7th was in a 3rd class. And with that, I had, very small classes, and teachers who thought I was intelligent, who made me believe in my intelligence. And once they believed in me, I mean, nothing would stop me. I was so motivated. I would stay up half the night and get up early the next morning to restudy quizzes and prepare myself. And then they started calling me an overachiever.
Excellent.
So I think that in terms of takeaways, a child can perform at the level that we expect. And so we need to have high expectations and high support for our children. And that's one of the things that reading recovery does. When
Okay, and that was I just want to get
yeah,
in there that this is now the segue into your the wonderful defense of reading recovery that you have in your book and some of the stories you tell. So
yes,
I'm just going to
yes.
chime in with that, and now I'll leave you alone.
Yes, reading recovery really changed my life. I had already had a lot of success teaching children to read through writing, but there were still a few kids I could not help make progress. And I ended up referring one, her name is Linda, and to special education. And then I went up to the special education office, to her classroom, not her office, but her classroom, to visit her. And she was doing busy work, paperwork, while the teacher was reading a book. And I was just, I mean, I was just devastated that I had, you know, taken this child that was making progress, but not the progress that I didn't know where to take her next. I didn't know what to do to encourage her progress to the next step. And certainly special education was not the answer for her at that time. So when I learned reading recovery, oh my goodness, I thought this is what I've been looking for, because I wanted to be the teacher like my speech teacher, who helped me to learn to say the R's and and to do it in such a way that I felt so good about myself and loved being with her. So I wanted to be that kind of teacher. And reading recovery allowed me to learn how to look at the child's repertoire and take what they can do successfully and build on that to make learning easy rather than making learning difficult. And that was just such a beautiful thought for me, and how to support the child as you went up a gradient of difficulty in books. So I was able to train teachers for 15 years. And during that time, we had about 4 different superintendents. And each time we had a different superintendent, reading recovery was at risk. And so, I'd have to get in there and fight for it. And we were able to maintain. And yet right before I got off the board, the director of schools had to cut the budget. And he cut the budget of the 2 teacher leaders that I had just trained in Ohio to take my place. And so I decided to run for the school board. And when I won and beat, I only had raised $8,000, and my opponent, who was a charter school proponent, he raised $35,000.
Wow.
And still I was able to win, I think, because I think that people wanted to see an educator in that position. So once I became a school board member and I met with the director of schools, he said, what do you want to accomplish? And I said, I want to see reading recovery. I want to see our children receive the interventions that they need in order to be able to succeed. And he said, well, we had to cut the budget. And I explained, did we have to cut the best trained reading recovery or reading teachers in the district when we cut the budget? And he said, okay, I got your point. So he was wonderful, allowed me to work with administrators to write a comprehensive literacy plan where we had great classroom instruction. and we used Fontes and Pinnell in our literacy instruction in elementary, and then we had reading recovery as the intervention, and we had um, uh, volunteers who were also trained, who came in and listened to the children read, and the comprehensive literacy program was wonderful. Then we got a new director of schools, and he indicated that he was a proponent of reading recovery. And as it turned out, he wasn't.
Oh my.
So it was a painful experience that we had. We at one point had 5 teacher leaders in Nashville and 84 reading recovery teachers. And I had to hold the director of schools accountable for some of the mismanagement that he had done. And to retaliate, he got rid of all of our reading recovery teachers. And so it was a very painful experience. He was, saying things like, he still believed that reading recovery was the best training that a teacher could get. And he wanted to put all of our reading recovery teachers in the classroom. And so at the board meeting, there were about 50 reading recovery teachers in attendance. And I asked them, how many of you are willing, you've heard Dr. Joseph's recommendation, how many of you are willing to do this, to step into this position? Not one teacher raised her hand. And consequently, we lost reading recovery. About 90% of our teachers left the district. All of our reading recovery teachers left or retired. And it was just a really painful experience.
Well, that was one part of the book that caught my eye, and I'm going to share with the readers something here. Let me see where, oh dear.
Mhm.
This is the excerpt from it, but the part that really caught my eye was that he admitted here that reading recovery really works, but he, in spite of that, he decided that he was not going to continue it. So that was a real tragedy for your district. Okay,
Yes.
and I'm hoping to use this this particular excerpt during my LitCon presentation. Okay, well, I think we're getting close to the point where we can wrap it up. If I can learn how to stop this share. And tell me, you know what? That share may not have been on the screen. Oh
Yes.
dear. Oh well. Remember when I said if we make a glitch, we just walk right through it?
That's right.
I just made a glitch and we're going to walk right through it.
Yes.
But let me tell you how delightful it was to hear this, how your experiences in your personal experiences and your personal life experiences, you learned how to overcome difficulties, and then spending all that time, all those years, helping children overcome difficulties and teaching teachers how to help children. So just thank you for all you've done. And any last thoughts before we do the goodbye Zoom wave?
Well, I hope that that teachers will find this book, and that it will impact their teaching, and they will look at children in a different way in terms of seeing their potential rather than their production at this point, and be able to take the children from where they are to a great literacy experience.
Okay, well, folks, I'm going to flash the book up on the screen one last time. Let's see if I actually put it on the screen this time. All right, Dr. B, you want your, here we are. There it is. So
Yeah.
Rubies in the Rubble, and there'll be a link to it in the blog. So I think we have now reached the point where we do the famous goodbye Zoom wave. So here we go. Bye, everybody. And
Bye
thank you
bye.
so much.
Thank you.